Can we experience joy in the midst of our adversities? Do the walls that we live in confine and define who we are? I was a normal mother of 4 sons, wonderful husband, 46 years. 2002, diagnosed with inflammatory breast cancer, stage 3. Whoa, wasn't expecting that one. Not one you usually live through, yet 12 years later, here I am. 2006, tragedy that ripped our lives apart. And now, going through another bump in the road, in 2014, diagnosed again, stage 4 cancer. That's a death sentence. So I also have a sentence that I'm living out. But in the midst of all of that, there is hope in a future. And there is importance in how we take our next step. In 2006, our son was responsible for the worst crime that I had ever heard of in my life. And on that day, as I received the news in his yard, there are words that I believe in, that we are to consider it pure joy when we face trials of many kinds. And yet, on that day, I wasn't saying, praise you, Jesus, for what you're going to do. No. I was lying on the ground in a fetal position, feeling like everything inside of me would be expelled. And yet, within that first 24 hours, I was given 2 gifts. My husband was a police officer for all of our married life, and he retired from the force 1 year prior to this, in 2005. All day long, my husband's head hung low, and the tears did not stop flowing. He cried so much that he used a dish towel to keep wiping the tears away. And he actually wore the skin off of his forehead, like wore a hole in his skin on his forehead. And what did he do in his retirement? He chose to be an Amish taxi driver. Wow. All day long, he kept saying, I will never face my Amish neighbors again. Those poor mothers, those poor children, those poor fathers. I will never face my Amish neighbors. We will have to move far away. Later in that day, our home was filled all day with friends and family that came to try to give us comfort and consolation. And late in the afternoon, there was a knock on the door. And it was our Amish neighbor, Henry. My husband had driven Amish taxi for him. And as he came inside, he walked over to my husband where he sat at the breakfast bar with his head hung down. He didn't lift his head all day. And Henry starts massaging his shoulders. And he says, Roberts, we love you. That's how he always referred to my husband, Roberts. He says, we love you. We don't hold anything against you. We forgive. We forgive your son that had taken his life that day. Eventually, after this went on for about 20 minutes, was the first time I saw my husband raise his head that day. And he looks up into Henry's eyes and he says, thank you, Henry. And as I'm watching this from about 6 feet away, it's like something jumped in my spirit saying, wow, someday we will heal from this. It will take a very long time, but someday we will heal. So to me, that day, Henry was my angel in black. He ministered to my husband's spirit that day and the sorrow and the grief that he was experiencing. For myself, there was a counselor that came along with one of the pastors that came into our home that day. I'd never met her before. Her name was Betsy. And she looked at me and she said, how old was your son? I said, our son was nearly 33 years old. She said, do you have any good memories of your son? I said, good memories? Wow. He wasn't a perfect kid, but he was a wonderful son. She said, when your mind goes back to this day, Take it back to all those 33 years of wonderful memories that you have, because what happened on this day is this much of your son's life. I can't tell you how much that helped me to take my mind back to all those wonderful memories that I had of Charlie. And in any of our circumstances, that is what we need to do. Whatever our worst day of our life is, it is not our whole life. Today is today. We all have choices to make into tomorrow. And all we need to be concerned about is that next step, not the whole future. Just what step am I taking next? Is it getting out of bed in the morning? Whatever it is, taking the next step. So I was very thankful for that piece. So to me, God gave us Henry and Betsy on that very first day to give us hope. But that night as I went to bed, I did cry out and I said, God, if there's anything at all that you can use in this situation to bring glory to you, you do that, Lord. And as the week unfolded, I also remember on that first day calling our son Zach in Manhattan. And as I spoke with him, and I ended the conversation with, Zach, I'll let you know when the funeral arrangements are for your brother. And his response was, Mom, I will not be coming to my brother's funeral. I hate my brother for what he has done. I will not honor him by being there. Wow, this mother's heart that was already torn apart. I knew that if he didn't show up that day, it would not only hurt our hearts, but it would be a decision he would regret someday. So everyone that came through our home that week, I asked them to pray for our son Zach, just that he would have a heart change and he would come to his brother's funeral. So later in that week, we had a visitor, one of the Amish builders that my husband drove for, and he sat and talked with us for an hour on the sofa, and as he got up to leave, he says, was there anything else I can do for you? As the Amish talk. And I said, well, everyone that comes into our home this week, I'm asking them to pray for our son Zach, that he'll have a heart change and come to his brother's funeral. He says, well, do you want me to give him a call? And I was like, oh my goodness, an Amishman just asked to call my son in Manhattan. I mean, back then, a lot of them have cell phones now, but 8-9 years ago, they still didn't. So that was just like, wow, an Amishman's going to call my son. And he did make that call. He did not speak directly to my son, but the message that he left on his answering machine brought forth a heart change in my son. And he came on Friday afternoon, the night before the funeral. I got a call, and he said, Mom, someone can pick me up at the station at 5:30. Wow, how that did my heart good. So that was just amazing. But going back to day one, going to the funeral 5 days later, I never even thought about going to the girls' funerals. That didn't even enter my mind. I was in so much grief. And yet, as we went to the gravesite for our son, 30 to 40 Amish come and surround the gravesite as a prayer covering around us, shielding us from the cameras that were out on the road. Wow. What a blessing that was to our hearts. But who greeted us? The first parents to greet us were the parents that lost not just one daughter at the hand of our son, but lost 2 daughters at the hand of our son. Wow. Who here has anything in their heart they cannot forgive or they choose not to forgive? Forgiveness is a choice that we make. It's not a feeling, and it's not an emotion. It is a choice that we make. But once that choice is made, the feelings and the emotions will follow. And as for the Amish, they say we need to forgive every day. But they follow what the directions of that Jesus gave us. Forgive and you will be forgiven. Forgiveness is not an easy choice. Rosanna is the most injured of the girls. There were 5 girls that lost their lives, and 5 that received injuries that took months and years of healing. Rosanna was the youngest of the 5 survivors. She was 6 at the time. She'll turn 15 this September. She is still tube-fed and in a wheelchair. Every Thursday night, I spend time with Rosanna. The first 2 nights that I went there, I came home and I just cried my eyes out. I held my composure while I was in her home. And after the second week of crying the whole way home and just being a basket case, I sat in my garage, tears just wouldn't stop, and I cried out to God and I said, okay, I thought you were calling me to do this, to be a part of this child's life. But I can't do this. I can't be an emotional basket case every week. So if you want me to go back there next week, Lord, you need to be my strength, because there is none in me. And I go to Rosanna's every Thursday night. This past year, I've cut back to every other Thursday because of the stage 4 cancer and reserving my energy. And I just am so thankful. This family and this young woman are not doing life as it should be, but they are doing life as it is. And they welcome me into their home. Rosanna can't speak, but every time I go into the house, she sees me, it's, she loves to greet me. And as I'm caring for her, and if she hears Dad come in the door, it's like she perks up, she knows who that is. So I am just thankful for the gift that I'm given of being invited into their home. I am thankful for the community that has embraced us. You may not have that opportunity in your own situation, and yet you can do your part by choosing to forgive, by choosing to receive forgiveness. And forgiveness is not always reconciliation. I won't go into all of that, but forgiveness for someone and something that we have gone through in our circumstances frees us. My son had made a decision. He had built a prison in his mind. And any prison in our mind is worse than any walls that we can live in. It's worse than any cancer anybody can be diagnosed with, because it brought him to a decision that brought great destruction. We do not need to allow these things to bind us and blind us. When we can surrender our lives, surrender our thoughts and our emotions and our feelings, wow, for a decision that will move us forward. That is what we're called to do. I choose to seek joy in the midst of my trials. Every day that we wake up is a gift. And that's what I choose for all of you. Make the right choice. Surrender is one of the hardest things to do. Forgive is one of the hardest things to do. Many of you here may be in your situation because of something that you weren't able to forgive in your life, and it brought you to the situation of whatever your crime was. And yet, you can choose to forgive, and you can be forgiven. Thank you.